When we first started caring, we always made sure that everyone in the household knew what was happening. So generally I would take the phone call, being, the primary carer, Greg being at work and me being at home. I would take the phone call and just get the briefest amount of information from whoever was able to provide that. So generally it's the age of the child and the gender of the child, whether they attend school, any sort of medical needs that they might have, or, any disabilities they might have, special needs. So I would take that phone call. And then, I would call Greg first and I would say, I have a phone call about a placement. How are you feeling about that? And if we had other children that we were providing care for in the home, that would obviously be a consideration as well. How long, does this child need care for? Is it just for the weekend? We can accommodate that. We can make sure that everyone feels quite settled about there being somebody else coming into the home for the weekend. If that placement is required for longer, then it would be a different conversation. How long do you think this child needs care for, and what are their specific needs, and can we provide that? Do we have the resources to make sure that everybody is feeling safe and comfortable, and that we can manage everything we need to manage? I think it's a good idea just to take it in quite a steady pace, always being transparent with the other people that live in your home and are in your family, talking about what challenges do you think you might face. But there definitely are, and I think a lot of that really centres around the children themselves. If you have a safe, stable home, whether you've brought kids up or not, having a good understanding around just being able to listen quietly and listen intently to what a child's going through. They might not share a lot with you straight away, but as you form relationships with the children that come into your care, they will open up to you and they will tell you things about their lives. They have families and they have an experience before they've come into care, obviously, and a lot of that is hard to hear. And we have had kids who struggle to get to sleep at night, who are still wetting their beds when they're 10, who have food hoarding issues. There are lots of different issues. They can be angry, they can feel insecure, they can feel tense and anxious and scared, and they're all difficult things to deal with. But I think the most important thing is that the focus is not on you. If you need advice, if you need support or counsel around how to help that child overcome their struggles, then you just need to reach out to Life Without Barriers, and that's their job, is to help you build up that toolkit and that skill set to be able to provide care for the child. So I have found that's one of the most distressing things, is hearing about children's past. It's also really difficult when a child comes into your care and you might think that it's going to be for a short time. So in your head you're thinking, okay, I've got my parameters of care set around 2 weeks, and then you discover that child needs a longer placement. Not all of the answers can be found in a really short space of time. So even though somebody might suggest that the child needs care for this amount of time, it might be longer, and then you kind of thrown a bit of a curveball. Can we provide care for longer? We don't want that child to go to another placement and to have to be unsettled and to have to navigate a new family and a new household. You want to be able to provide care for that child for longer. And sometimes it works in the opposite way. Sometimes you might take a phone call and somebody will say, look, we've got a 6-year-old, we're pretty sure he needs care for a 3-month period. That might be the order that the courts have determined, while all the discovering is made around who else can support that child and what sort of care he might need. And then it's not 3 months, it's a year, it extends to a 12-month order, or it's less. So just navigating the uncertainty around care for a child. Grief and loss for a carer is as much a part of the journey as grief and loss for a child, regarding their parents, their siblings, their old schools. There's lots of grief and loss around those issues, but also for a carer. The training, it's not just necessary if you want to be the right kind of carer and the carer that these children need to be able to overcome issues in their lives and obstacles in their lives. The training around trauma is absolutely essential. So just learning about how a child's brain is wired when they're dealing with high stress constantly and critical incidences, it's so important to understand how their brains work and what initial reaction they might jump to. It could be a loud noise, it could be a song they hear on the radio, it could just be one sentence that you say to them, and that might just send them into absolute panic, high anxiety, stress. Having a good understanding of how children who have trauma or who are affected by trauma, being able to help them navigate their way through those difficult times is really important. There's always someone there to support from Life Without Barriers. The training is constantly evolving. That's why it's so important to stay on the cutting edge. That's the best way to navigate the issues that these those little kids come into our homes with. There are certainly really valid reasons why people think I'm not going down that road, and they can look like, I don't know how you give children back. And to me, that's, well, you're not really giving them back. It's not a decision that you can make about how long a child spends in care. Somebody else has all of that information, and as carers, we don't have a lot of that information. So as far as giving a child back, it's you caring for them to the best of your ability with lots of support, giving them a safe space and showing them what it looks like to have a home where there are not those incidences that cause them stress and anxiety and may put them at risk of harm. So I think that the best thing about foster care for us is when a child does get to go home. That is absolutely pivotal. And that's why our family actually started foster caring, because we wanted to be a part of how can we help in the situation where, if it's best for a child to be with their families and to live with their birth families, that's what we wanted to be a part of. And some of the most rewarding things that we've ever been a part of on our journey as foster carers is when we see children, going home and living where they're meant to live. And we're just a stepping stone along the way. And if children stay in care, then you deal with that at the time. And if they go home, it's an incredible honour to be part of that transition process where a child gets to go home.